Hey, this is Eric Lay, producing branch manager and mortgage loan originator with Guaranteed Rate in Boise, Idaho. Hey, just coming to you with another video update because as we talked about last week on the video, and if you didn't see it, you can go back and watch it on my social media platforms, but it's going to start getting thrown around in the news a lot. There might be an economic recession coming. One of the things that you're going to start hearing about, because it just happens tomorrow, it's on the first Friday of every month, the BLS jobs report, or the unemployment report, as some people like to call it, is being released. It happens on the first Friday of every month. Now, that's one way to watch, because when we get into periods of economic recession, usually the last shoe to drop is jobs, and people start losing jobs. Unfortunately, that's just a part of recessions and what happens. But I don't want you to just look at that, even though that's the most widely looked at number reporting jobs. There's another one that was released just this week, and it's called the JOLTS survey, which is job openings and labor turnover. Now, there's something that happened in that I want to use and show you here as an example. So I'm going to do a screen share to show you what I'm talking about here. Let's see. Hit the screen and bring this up. There we go. So what I'm showing you here is, and this is from the JOLT survey, this is what they refer to as the job openings per unemployed worker. Now, when you think about how strong the job market has been here recently, there have been just a lot of jobs. Like, you see it every time you go drive down the street in a city. Help wanted, help wanted. There's so many people trying to hire people, and there just aren't enough workers right now. Well, the gray bars on here represent recessions, okay? So you can see this is the Great Recession back in 2008. Here's the little mini pandemic recession. But it's pretty consistent what happens, right? You can see that the period of time directly before the recession got identified, there was a heightened amount of job openings per unemployed worker. And then that number, you can see when it hits a peak, that's usually right before a recession, and then it starts to come down, okay? You can see after the Great Recession, the number starts rising, kind of flatlines, and here's the pandemic recession. Well, boom, that thing fell through fast, right? And once the recession and the pandemic were kind of over, that number started recovering. Well, look what's happening right now. This doesn't necessarily mean that we're in a recession, but you can see that the number of job openings per unemployed worker are starting to drop. The Federal Reserve raising rates is also something that leads up to recessions. So what I've got here now is a longer chart going back to the 1950s. The line graph on there represents the interest rate, the federal funds rate, not mortgage rates, full disclosure, but the federal funds rate. Because what the Federal Reserve has to do to try to get inflation under control is to slow down the economy. Unfortunately, slowing down the economy usually leads to recessions. So you can see the rate hikes, and then the recession comes down, and they have to drop rates. You can see that pattern gets repeated almost perfectly all the way through. So what does that mean? It might mean that we're in a recession right now, because as you saw those numbers, they always start off before the recession gets defined, and we might be in one right now. But there's two indicators to think about there that say, hey, maybe it is. So why am I sharing all the bad news with you? An economic recession is not necessarily bad for housing. Quite the opposite, actually. So what I want to do is share another chart here with you that's going to show you this. Let's bring this up and show you. What I'm doing is I'm coming to the Federal Reserve Economic Database. You can see Fred and this website. You can go to yourself and find all kinds of data. So fred.stlouisfed.org is the website. So what I'm showing you here on the screen is the median sales price for all homes sold in the United States going all the way back to 1960. Okay, actually, I guess 1963 you can see there. Well, look at what prices have done through recessions. And again, on this chart, the same thing. These gray vertical bars are periods of economic recession, okay? So if you take a look at that, you're going to see that housing prices, median prices, I should say, did pretty well during recessions. There's only one recession, the Great Recession, 2008, where housing prices dropped. That would be this period right here, okay? You can see the prices started there and they came down, okay? Why did that happen? That happened because the housing crash in the Great Recession, that recession was caused by housing. There hasn't been another recession in the past that was caused by the housing market in the way that it was in 2008. So if you have a different situation, and right now we don't have a housing situation like we did in 2008, and by that I mean loans where everybody can qualify for without having to even prove their income, interest only, 100% financing, 620 credit score. I mean, that recipe was made for disaster during that time. And we don't have that same kind of mortgage underwriting now. We also have a period right now where we're in a situation where we have less inventory than we have for the number of buyers that are out there. So, although the number of inventory in the Boise area where I work has come up quite a bit, it still isn't at a place where it would be considered a balanced market by the Real Estate Association, NAR, and those people. So that's one thing that I would say goes to it. Now, the next thing I want to share you, and I'll end on this note, is what happens to mortgage rates during a recession. Now, again, let's be clear. I'm not saying that we're in an economic recession. I'm saying there's a good chance and a high likelihood we are. We just don't know for a while. But this chart now, take a look at this. This is what mortgage rates do during economic recessions. Now, we have only tracked mortgage rates at Freddie Mac, that's the source of this data, since 1971. Actually, April of 1971 was the very first time they started taking the average rates and documenting them. Take a look at what rates did during economic recessions. You could argue that this guy back in the early 70s, rates started the recession a little bit lower than they were, tiny bit, right? But every other one, they start and end lower, start and end lower, start and end lower. You can see the pattern there, right? Interest rates on mortgages almost always, with the exception of that one recession back in the early 70s, move lower. So although you can argue that there's a lot of bad things that come out of recessions, right? Higher unemployment rates, job losses, your stock market portfolio usually takes a little bit of a hit. Those are not good things. I understand that. But what the media will not tell you is that housing prices will generally hold up and mortgage rates usually move lower. So why am I sharing all this with you? Well, I'm a mortgage lender. You can see why I'm wanting to put out some of this news to balance the negative news that the media will have. There are some good things that will come out of an economic recession for the housing market. Now, if this video has caused you to think a little bit, maybe you're somebody who's been on the fence about buying a home, you're not sure if it makes sense for you right now, or just want to have a complimentary view and maybe even get pre-approved, I'd love to talk to you in more detail to help you with that, to see if it makes sense to buy a home now or in the future. I'm going to put my contact information in the comments to the social media platform you're watching on down below. Please reach out to me directly on that platform or give me a call or email if that's easier for you. I'll look forward to talking to you again soon. And thanks so much for watching this video. Feel free to like, comment, and share with others that you know might benefit from this. And again, use me as a resource. I'm here to help.